What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Renegade Animation on the Renegade Pop Culture Podcast Network. My name is Mike. I will be your host for this evening. Joining me, as always, is my co-captain, Cameron.
Howdy, howdy.
And making his Renegade Pop Culture debut, please welcome from the PJ Campbell Network, Maxwell Haddad.
Hello, how are you guys?
Good.
Doing very good.
We got a fun
Excellent.
show today. We've got reviews for a new Netflix animated series, City of Ghosts, and of course, Disney's 59th animated film, Raya and the Last Dragon. But first, we've got some news to cover. So, Cam, what do we have?
Well, first off, it's been a light news week, and thank goodness for that. And so we're going to start off with the unfortunate passing of Brenda Banks. She was a pioneering an animator who passed away on December 30th. And she was mostly known for like starting out with animating for Ralph Bakshi's films like Wizards. And then she moved on to work on stuff like Looney Tunes. And I think she was a very important person in the Tiny Toons scene. And she also worked on like The Simpsons and King of the Hill. It's very much a shame. And she's like one of the few black animators known famous and such and during like a time when that wasn't really a thing. So, rest in peace. Now, to catch up on something that I forgot to mention last episode, Hulu has announced a season 3 for Animaniacs, and this is ahead, of course, of the season 2 premiere, which we still don't know when that's going to happen. And then they released a trailer for MODOK, the Marvel adult comedy series with Patton Oswalt as the main character. So, any news about or like thoughts about Animaniacs getting renewed for a third season?
I am really happy that the first season was apparently a pretty big success. I mean, it's Animaniacs. You know that people are going to tune in. So to see a third season, I'm pretty excited for that.
What about you, Max?
I liked but didn't love the first season. But it was still nice to get back into that world. And I have a feeling that as they get to make more episodes, they will just get better. And hopefully they can dive back more into some of the supporting characters and stuff from the original run that I was missing in the first season. But any more Animaniacs is okay by me.
Okay, any thoughts about the trailer for MODOK? I mean, like for me, it looks great. It looks a lot better than a lot of the productions from the people who make Robot Chicken. I mean, this is the same studio and the same team. And I think it's mostly because Patton Oswalt's involved in it, and not just because he's the voice of MODOK, but I think he helped create the series. And I feel like he's so perfect as this, still threatening, but mostly fairly pathetic supervillain. And I mean, that's just what I have to say.
No, I agree with a lot of that. I think Oswald is also an executive producer, so it very much has his comedic sensibilities all over that trailer.
Max,
I think it looks fun. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I would say I think it looks fun, and other than Patton, I think the voice cast is great. You got Beck Bennett and Melissa Fumero and Sam Richardson and Ben Schwartz, and Wendy McClendon Covey from the Goldbergs. So just like a who's who of people I find really, really funny. So
that's all. Yeah,
that's always a good sign. So I'm hopeful. It looks fun.
It's going to be good. I hope it's good, and we'll see when it's released in May. So, Netflix, in their non-stop spending spree, have acquired the family adventure film Teddy and the Guardians of the Night from 7 Bucks Productions and Flynn Pictures Company. This is also Dwayne Johnson is going to be producing this. So the story, stuffed teddy bears from around the world secretly come to life to protect children everywhere from all the things that go bump in the night. This sounds pretty cool. Like, I mean, I know it sounds like a goofy little thing, but then you see the the concept art, and it's like that monster's horrifying, and that teddy bear is adorable. Like, so no word on like whether it's CGI or 2D, but Netflix is doing pretty well with their animated features, so I'm hyped for it. So
personally, I hope it's in the same like 2D 3D blend as Klaus, because I'm not sure how that monster design is going to translate into the modern 3D animation.
I think the one thing you'll have to get over is that like they'll have to adapt it maybe if they do CGI, because I can also see that monster looking kind of a pain in the butt to animate like
Fair
in
enough.
2D, because it's a lot. There's this assumption that more detailed characters means better animation, and a lot of animators have come out to kind of push back against that notion, saying like, no, it's much harder because you have to focus on so many details. And I'm not saying you have to go like the Cartoon Network design route or whatever, but it's like you just have to be careful and pick your details wisely, or just have characters that can be translated by animators and not look bad. Max, any thoughts about this project?
Yeah, I mean, off the bat, I love that Netflix has sort of become a home for like off the grid animation that the bigger studios aren't producing, which is why I hope they'll pick up Nimona. Uh, but looking at the concept art, like the juxtaposition in style between the teddy bear and the monster is so stark. It's going to be interesting to see how they balance that. And also, I'm looking at the like hand of the monster, and it seems like some of the fingers have their own faces on it and their own eyes. So that'll be really interesting to see if they maintain that once it's fully animated, if they'll have different voices for the fingers. I don't know. It could be really cool.
Yeah, yes. Speaking of Nimona, so there's rumblings going around that Blue Sky, after rest in peace, Blue Sky. But the people who worked on the film are shopping the film around to be finished by maybe a streaming service or a different studio. And I'm glad, because like Mike and I talked about this, so many of the studios have like plenty of unfinished or unrealized projects. And
The DreamWorks graveyard, for example, is it only gets bigger every year.
yeah, and it's always sad that they just can't like shop it around to see if another studio wants to finish it, or see if another director has an idea or something of how they can tackle it. So I don't know why this wasn't always a thing, but I understand it's probably legal and copyright stuff, and not every studio can afford the copyright, and it just makes copyright laws that much more of a hassle. So Cartoon Network has a new show coming out called Elliot from Earth. It's from the same people who made The Amazing World of Gumball, and it will premiere on March 29th. And I think it will also be on HBO Max as well. Like it'll like show up on Cartoon Network and then HBO Max. And while it's definitely a different style from Gumball, I find it to be charming still, and I still think it still has a lot of that multimedia like personality and style that made Gumball really like good looking, and like for shows like what we're going to talk about, City of Ghosts, to talk about. So any thoughts about this new show?
So I haven't actually seen a lot of The Amazing World of Gumball, but I've always kind of appreciated their approach to mixed media, combining like different art styles in sort of like the same kind of like location. That's just from that perspective, I'm excited to see what that same creative team does with a new series.
Max, have you seen Gumball?
Yeah, I'm not honestly that familiar with Gumball. I haven't seen it, but I'm looking at some of the art from Elliot from Earth, and I think the alien creatures or monsters look quite fun. Sort of like a Monsters University feel mixed with a little real monsters. Yeah, it could be fun.
Yeah. No, we'll just have to see. So, like any new original stuff after Cartoon Network kind of gave everyone a heart attack, saying like we're just doing reboots and sequels and spin-offs to everything that was successful, and they're saying like, no, we still got a few original stuff coming out. So
that stuff should be cherished.
Yeah. So who's ready for another live action animated hybrid so soon after Tom and Jerry? But instead of Tom and Jerry, we got Hello Kitty. So New Line is ready to make a Hello Kitty feature, and it will have animation veterans Jennifer Coyle and Leo Matsuda behind the project. Well, is there a reason this one had to be live action? I really don't get the approach here. Like, Hello Kitty is one of the most recognizable brands on earth. You don't no there's no human characters in Hello Kitty. It's just like these cute little icon characters from Sanrio and whatnot. So I don't know, it just sounds weird, even though the people behind it are very talented. Any thoughts?
The only way that I know, like the only way this could possibly work is if it's a film about the phenomenon of Hello Kitty. Because otherwise, like you said, there's no reason for these Sanrio characters to appear in live action unless unless you make it like about Hello Kitty's massive popularity, and even then you have to put a lot of faith in the people behind this series or movie.
It's a movie.
Okay, yeah, that makes me even extra nervous.
And it's not like I said, it's not like there's no talent behind it. Like let's see, what's her name? Jennifer Coyle worked on like Harley Quinn. She was a producer and director and showrunner for DC Superhero Girls, and she was a director across 6 seasons of Bob's Burgers and The Spectacular Spider-Man, among other things. And then Matsuda was a Disney animator, and he directed the short film Inner Workings that was, I think, in front of Moana, if I remember correctly. So I think like the talent's there. I don't know. Max, any thoughts?
I mean, I'm not a big Hello Kitty person. I don't know that much about it, but I think the success of live action animation hybrid speaks for itself for the most part. And by success, I mean lack thereof.
Oof.
There are exceptions that prove the rule, like Looney Tunes Back in Action or Who Framed Roger Rabbit, but for the most part, I haven't enjoyed the majority of them. I understand why they keep doing it, because I think, when you're aiming something towards a younger audience, they're intrigued by that melding of form, but I always like to be proven wrong.
Same. No, it's like I like Detective Pikachu, and I liked, for the most part.
Oh yeah, I did like Detective Pikachu. That's a good point.
Yeah, and then I didn't like the whole movie, but I did enjoy Sonic the Hedgehog more than I thought I was.
Same.
Yeah, although I don't know if I would.
It's only like live action animated because Sonic is animated, so yeah, it might not fully count. So let's talk about some delays before we move on to some other animation news. Minions: The Rise of Gru, the upcoming sequel to the 2015 Minions, has been delayed an entire freaking year.
I have thoughts about this.
Go ahead.
So on the one hand, I feel like I should give Illumination some benefit of the doubt. Like I'm thinking what if like the animators at this studio aren't, what if they weren't as prepared for the quarantine as, say, Disney, for example. So production wasn't as easy to just simply pick up at home. That's me giving Illumination the benefit of the doubt, but the other thing is the Despicable Me franchise is Illumination's cash cow without a doubt, and Universal wants to make sure that they get as many butts in seats as possible. So that's probably the reason why they pushed Minions as far away from all of the other delayed 2020 titles as possible. Because the assumption is a year from now, we will have kicked the pandemic. Like we will have wiped it off the earth. Everyone is vaccinated, and we can go back to some sort of normal, or at least a new normal. But given the success of other family films that took the direct to video approach, like Trolls World Tour, Scoob,
Crude's a New Age.
yeah, and Soul. I'm not sure I agree with the decision to push the Minions sequel as far back to pretty much the point of people forgetting that this movie even exists.
Yeah, no, I just don't think it should be that drastic. It's going to be like that Rumble film that Paramount delayed to an entire year. It's like at least Minions will make its money back. It's Minions. Like Rumble, people aren't going to care about Rumble, and I hate saying that because I'm sure the people who worked on it are super talented and had fun, hopefully. But it's like these delays, I don't know. I just don't think delaying everything is going to be as like beneficial as they think it is, because it's like I don't think this industry can go another year without doing something, either like a co-theater and on-demand release, or doing a premiere on-demand release after 3 weeks in theaters. I don't know. It's a lot. I'm not saying it's like this movie's going to be bad. Why delay it? It's like I'm sure it's going to be fine. It's probably going to be pretty enjoyable. It's just a lot.
The interesting thing for me is that it's a universal release, and they're the ones that made that new deal with the theaters that they could have a movie on PVOD 17 days after it plays theaters.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point.
I think we saw success with that with Crudes and a couple other movies. So because of that, I have to believe it's genuinely just that it's nowhere near finished yet. I don't think they were able to pivot and work from home like Disney was, say, on Raya, which obviously we're going to get into. Whether or not they need a full year is another story, but I think also they're hoping that next summer things will be so back to normal that it can be a huge hit. So I think it's some combination of the two. I just have to assume it's not ready to go.
Yeah, no, we'll have to see if any news comes up about like were they actually not finished, because I felt like I heard they were finished, like they were able to work from home, but I guess not. Like it's interesting. We'll just have to see what happens. So Netflix, we're back on the Netflix train. Have partnered with Hachette Les Editions, Albert Rene, and playwright Elaine Chabat to create the first ever animated limited series based on the iconic French comic book, The Adventures of Asterix. It will be 3D, and it will be streaming 2 years from now in 2023. So I'm like, I don't know. I don't want to assume you guys don't know anything about Asterix, because I don't know, because the US isn't like the big fan base for this franchise. It's usually in the UK and France.
Your assumption is correct, at least as far as I'm concerned.
I know, but you know what they say about assuming something. Mike, any
do.
thoughts?
I'm not the biggest Asterix fan, but I'm familiar. I'm familiar enough with the property, like just tangentially.
Yeah, no. If anyone has Amazon Prime, I think Asterix versus the Vikings is on there, and that one has like Paul Giamatti, Brad Garrett as Asterix and Obelix, and the main villains voiced by John DiMaggio. And it's a lot of fun, especially like when they go on their adventures to beat up the Romans. There's even a point in that movie where the Romans see them coming and they just sink their own ship so they don't have to deal with Asterix. It's definitely a distinct comic and franchise, so we'll have to see. So, did Nickelodeon piss off anyone else this week? Because I guess they did, because they announced the Patrick Star Show, which will be released this summer for 13 episodes. It'll be the second spinoff to SpongeBob after Camp Coral, which is out now on Paramount Plus. And it will be diving into, so let's see, here's what the premise says. Nickelodeon is diving deeper into Bikini Bottom to give fans to look at our fans a look at our lovable young adult Patrick Star and his entire family with a sitcom only he could imagine up. The Patrick Star Show follows a younger Patrick Star living at home with his family, where he hosts his own show for the neighborhood from his television turned bedroom. His little sister, Squidina, works behind the scenes to make sure Patrick's show is always running smoothly, while his parents, Bunny and Cecil, and his grandpa, Grandpat, each support Patrick in their own hilarious, absurd ways. The Star family's unpredictable adventures often inform, integrate, and sometimes even interfere with Patrick's TV show. But one thing is for sure, his bizarre life always makes for great television. So, I'm actually kind of looking forward to this. Like, I had a little hesitation because you know how it goes with making a spin-off for a popular franchise. It sometimes doesn't work, especially when you make it about the side character. But I have a little faith in it just because of the voice cast. Because you have Bill Fagerbach as Patrick. You have Tom Wilson as Patrick's dad, Cecil. Then you have Cree Summers as Bunny Star, Patrick's mom. You have Jill Taylor as Squidina Star. And my favorite casting, Dana Snyder as Grandpat Star. And if you know anything about Dana Snyder, from Aqua Teen or Squidbillies or any of his other appearances on like Chowder and what have you, I like this voice cast. It helps. And of course, they will have Tom Kenny, Roger Bumpass, Carolyn Lawrence, Clancy Brown, and Mr. Lawrence coming back as their individual characters. Any thoughts?
I'm honestly just here for the voice cast. One of my favorite classic episodes of SpongeBob is the one where Patrick's parents come to visit, and Tom Wilson, funny enough, plays Marty, Patrick's fake dad. So it's kind of funny to see him play a similar role in this spinoff. Plus, it's just nice to see Cree Summer back in like a mainstream project again.
Yeah, no, I can't wait for that. Max, any thoughts?
I am not that versed in SpongeBob. It sort of came a little after my time. I've seen a couple of the movies which I liked. The only SpongeBob related thing that I'm like an actual fan of was the Broadway musical. So
Understandable.
frankly, this is the kind of thing where I'm just like, oh, that sounds cool. I don't understand being mad about it, and I'm sure it'll be fun.
It's the whole thing because of Steven Hillenburg, the creator, passed away.
Sure. Yeah, I forgot about that. You're right. That's a good point.
And it's just like he said he didn't want spin-offs, and then of course Nickelodeon, Viacom being like, well, he's dead. Let's make the spin-offs. Even though he apparently signed off on Camp Coral happening. So
I do plan on watching Sponge on the Run later this week.
get ready. It's interesting.
Fair enough. Hey, anything with Keanu in it is worth my ticket.
Oh, of course. Absolutely. So, Gore Verbinski and Roger Deakins are teaming up again for 2 animated features. Of course, everyone would know Gore Verbinski for his live action films, but also the winner of the 2011 Best Animated Feature Oscar, Rango. And one of them is going to be so this is what on a interview with Collider, they said, Verbinski said, I'm working on 2 animated movies and I can't really talk about. I'm working on 2 screenplays. They're both animated movies. They're not Westerns. One is a musical. And, well, I'm looking forward to it. Something different. I think I never gave Rango the honest handshake it deserved, maybe. Because I remember I watched it years later and I was like, really? This is it? This is the movie that won Best Animated Feature? But I think I was also kind of caught up with the whole fact that Johnny Depp was a major part of this film's selling points. But we'll talk about that at another time. Any thoughts about this small announcement?
Okay, I'm actually a huge fan of Rango. I think it's brilliant. I don't honestly remember specifically what it was up against at the Oscars, so I can't speak if it would have been my pick, but I saw it a couple times in theaters. I thought it was so clever. I loved particularly, I recall the filmmaking process behind it as opposed to having the individual actors in recording booths working separately, as is so common they sort of had the actors on like a stage recording audio simultaneously, which I think added a certain like chemistry and texture to it that was fun. I'm also just in general a big fan of Gore Verbinski. I think he's one of like the wild creative minds of the last 20 years in cinema. And he's been attached to so many projects that have fallen through. Like I know he's working on BioShock and a couple other things. So that Netflix is giving him the opportunity to make these animated films that are, original ideas for him. And then you add Roger Deakins, arguably one of the great film artists of our time, to the equation. I could not be more excited.
Mike, any thoughts?
Gore Verbinski directing an animated musical sounds amazing. And for those who are kind of like raising their eyebrows at Roger Deakins' involvement, you have to remember that he served as the lighting consultant for all three How to Train Your Dragon films. So he has a little bit of animation experience on his resume, but also these two visionaries collaborating in this medium. It's like whether or not the movies end up any good, I personally think they will be great, but just these two working together, it's going to create something special.
Yeah, for anyone curious of what it was competing against in 2011 at the 84th Academy Awards, it was going against A Cat in Paris, Chico and Rita, Kung Fu Panda 2, and Puss in Boots. And it, of course, beat all of them. So, no, I think... Go ahead.
I would just say I probably would have voted for Kung Fu Panda 2, but Rango would be a close second for me.
I'm biased. I would have chosen Chico and Rita or A Cat in Paris, but that's because I'm so in love with the foreign animation scene, and those two are just fantastic movies. But yeah, Rango or Kung Fu Panda 2 would have been also very good winners. Puss in Boots, I don't know, but...
Yeah, it's, Disney has won so many of the awards, and I love Disney, don't get me wrong, but it's always nice when there's a year where there's not a Disney nominee, so at least someone else is going to win the award.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's why Rango has such a, I think, a popularity with it, because it was able to beat Disney one year, but that's also because Disney had a weak year, even though I loved Winnie the Pooh. This was also the same year as Cars 2. So, yeah, that's really, sadly, that's pretty much the one way to beat Disney is to catch them on an off year, and that's really tough. But let's move on. Let's talk about the Annie Award nominations. They were just recently announced for the one animation award show that actually matters and treats animation with all the respect that it deserves. Let's talk about mostly the nominations, like the major nominations. So the best feature the best feature nominees are Onward, Soul, The Croods: A New Age, The Willoughbys, and Trolls World Tour. I'm a little shocked about Trolls World Tour getting on there. I was thinking Over the Moon would have been the major contender to beat, but I guess The Willoughbys is more abstract art style, kind of helped push it further than Over the Moon. But who knows? Maybe just the reviews weren't as strong as they probably could have been. I mean, we can't feel too bad about Over the Moon because it's getting nominated for like 100 different other awards at the Annies, but still. Any thoughts about the best feature noms?
Yeah, I'm a little bit disappointed in Over the Moon not being nominated for feature, but at the same time, I don't know which of those five I would necessarily take off. Personally, I might have bumped off Onward. As much as I love that movie, I think Soul is pretty much all the Pixar representation we need for this year.
I think I would have kicked off Trolls World Tour just because as much as I still enjoyed that film, I felt like it still wasn't as good as The Croods: A New Age. But that's just me. Max, any thoughts about these nominations?
I agree that the miss of Over the Moon was a little surprising. And for me also, it's Trolls World Tour's inclusion as opposed to that was a surprise, especially because, like you said, there's two Pixar's and you have two DreamWorks animations. So to have, another studio represented would have been nice. I'll admit, when I first looked over the nominations a couple of days ago, there was one film that I was shocked was missing until I realized it was on the indie feature list. So
let's talk about this. The best indie feature, or the Annie Awards edition of the best foreign feature. So we have a Shaun the Sheep movie, Farmageddon, Calamity Jane, Ongaku Our Sound, Ride Your Wave, and Wolf Walkers. This is to me, this is always the more interesting category, because it's just like so many great animated films from overseas are coming out every year. So it's always a more competitive area. And even though I'm counting Calamity Jane as a 2021 film, since it officially got a US release in 2021, I'm very happy for that. Of course, I think Wolf Walkers is probably going to take home the whole thing. Though I love the other ones. I love Ongaku Our Sound, and Ride Your Wave was just fantastic. I guess like a Shaun the Sheep movie is kind of the weekend of these categories, of these nominations, but I don't really have much to complain about with the indie features. Mike, any thoughts?
When a Shaun the Sheep movie is the weakest in the category, that's when you have a damn good category. But obviously Wolfwalkers is going to take this in a landslide. But the other films that were nominated, I still highly recommend.
Max, I don't know if you've seen any of these outside of Wolfwalkers and maybe Shaun the Sheep.
Yeah, those are the two I've seen. Calamity Jane has been on my radar to watch, but Wolfwalkers I am madly in love with. It made my top 10 of films last year. I think it's just such a special work. So yeah, I think it's Wolfwalkers' award to lose, and deservedly. Although I haven't seen all of them, so I'm could amend that once I've seen the others. But
yeah, no, I like I said, I think Wolfwalkers is going to beat them all out. So best TV media for children, we have Hilda from season 2, Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the finale, She-Ra and the Princess of Powers, Star Wars: The Clone Wars, and Victor and Valentino. For best TV media for general audience, we have Close Enough. We also, for their episodes, Logan's Run and Room Parents, Gendy Tartakovsky's Primal for Coven of the Damned, Harley Quinn for Something Borrowed, Something Green, and Rick and Morty, the Vat of Acid episode, and The Midnight Gospel, Mouse of Silver. Well, first of all, congrats for Close Enough and Primal. I think this is pretty good. I'm a little pissed off that Kipo and the Age of Wonder Beasts has no spots here, or Glitch Checks, or the Owl House, like for these major nominees. So that's a little shocking to me.
I'm less upset with the Owl House not making these categories, because they did get a nomination for character design. But yeah, I'm also a little bit disappointed that there's zero representation for what Cam and I both agree was the best new series of 2020, Kipo and the Age of Wonder Beasts.
And and like I said, man, it's just disappointing, because I love those shows. And then it's just Mike, do you have any other categories that you'd like to talk about?
I haven't seen everything that was nominated for these two categories, but I will say the Vat of Acid episode is Rick and Morty at its best. So I'm glad that was the episode that got nominated.
Yeah. So I think the best direction for TV media is also pretty good. We have Gendy Tartakovsky's Primal for Plague of Madness, which that's a great episode. Great Pretender, Case 1-1, Los Angeles Connection, by Hiro Kaburagi. And that's very cool. It's an anime got nominated, which that's interesting to me. Then we got like Mao Mao, Heroes of Pure Heart. We got of course, the Rise of the TMNT, and then The Wonderful World of Mickey Mouse. Now for features, we have Calamity Jane by Remy Shea. Then we have Glenn Keane for Over the Moon, Masaki Yuasa for Ride Your Wave, Pete Docter and Kim Powers for Soul, and then Tom Moore and Ross Stewart for Wolfwalkers. That's a good category for directors, but that's just me. I mean,
Wow.
Yeah, it's interesting to see Over the Moon get a feature direction nomination and not in Best Feature.
it's weird, and it's like they get Over the Moon is also in like Best Music and plenty of
Strange.
other. Yeah, it's and like and just others. So yeah, it's always weird. Like you have the best. So I get, yeah. How does that work? Best director, but not a Best Picture nomination.
I mean, it happens at the Oscars, less so with the expanded, not animation, but just in general, less so with the expanded range. Now that it can be anywhere between 5 and 10, but it has still happened a few times. So I guess, I mean, the direction and the film itself are not necessarily intrinsically linked, but it's not like they nominated Onward for Best Director.
Yeah.
So it's sort of like, that's an interesting choice you made there.
Yeah, no, but other categories include like Best Storyboarding for Feature, which has Earwig and the Witch, Over the Moon is in here, Soul, The Crude's a New Age, and Wolfwalkers.
Yeah, Earwig and the Witch was quite a disappointment.
That was a huge disappointment. Mike and I were very critical of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then for Best Voice Acting for Feature, you got Earwig and the Witch with Vanessa Marshall as Bella Yaga. Though I would have given it to Mike, what's his name? Richard E. Grant, who was the Mandrake. Then Onward has Tom Holland. Over the Moon has who did I don't see the nominations. Weird. For that.
Robert G. Chu for playing Chin.
Huh.
For Over the Moon.
Alrighty. And then The Croods has Nicolas Cage as Grug. And then Ava Whitaker as Mabel McIntyre from Wolfwalkers. And I'm just glad a lot of these, like Wolfwalkers, has so many nominations. And then, of course, Best Writing has Shaun the Sheep, which is kind of funny, but of course, you still need to write a story for Shaun the Sheep. Onward, Over the Moon, Soul, and Wolfwalkers. And yeah, I think overall, this is a strong year, like including and not including the categories that we talked about. There's just a lot, and I just wanted to focus on mostly the big ones. So like shout outs to Best Production Design with the Willoughbys and Wolfwalkers and Soul, Onward, and Trolls World Tour.
There's one more category that I want to talk about. Best Character Design. This is where a lot of the TV stuff that we've covered on this podcast is represented, like Amphibia for the episode The Shut-In. Another Netflix anime, BNA, was nominated.
Yeah, the Runaway Raccoon. That was a good one.
Yep. And then Craig of the Creek, Looney Tunes cartoons, and The Owl House.
Yeah, for their episode Young Blood, Old Souls. And I know a lot of people like to criticize the looks of most modern cartoons, but give it a chance. Like if you get past that stupid just ignorance of it all, every show looks, for the most part, still looks great today. So
my only
go ahead.
Oh, if I could just make one other thing. For best voice acting in a feature, I would have much preferred, instead of Nick Cage for The Croods, to see Jamie Foxx for Soul, because I think what he did in that was such beautiful, nuanced work, as opposed to Nicolas Cage. And I like The Croods and New Age. I like both Croods movies, actually. But I don't think necessarily what he does in those movies voice-wise is as dramatically challenging as what Jamie Foxx had to do in Soul. So that stood out to me.
I get that. It's like I honestly preferred Emma Stone and Kelly Marie Tran in The Croods of New Age. If they had to go for that. But I do like seeing, like in the TV and media one, Jeff Bennett for Dragon Rescue Riders. And then let's see. Oh, and then Patrick Seitz in Thundercats Roar, where he plays Tigra and Mumra. And Patrick Seitz is a great voice actor, so I love him. So that covers all the news. And if we missed anything, we'll talk about it next time. That's how we do things here. So
one more thing before we move on. We were talking earlier about live action animated hybrids, and I just want to give a quick shout out to Entertainment Weekly's coverage of Space Jam: A New Legacy.
Oh, we got to talk about that.
Yes.
So go ahead.
So I think it was either Wednesday or Thursday. Entertainment Weekly, they gave us a first look at Space Jam: A New Legacy with our first couple images of Bugs, Tweety, Lola Bunny, and the rest of the Tooned squad with LeBron James in the in this virtual reality. And man, the more I think about like the plot of this movie, which I'll bring up in a second, like the more I hear about this movie, the more this movie it sounds like it's going to be the Mamma Mia, here we go again to the original Space Jam, a sequel that far surpasses the original.
Yeah, no, I'm a little confused about some of the cover art they're using, because it's like the characters are in 2D, but then they use these really nice looking CGI models for when they're playing basketball. I'm wondering if like what the deal is with that, like, or if just the 2D art is for marketing purposes.
That's honestly a good question, because the images that we got are all in the virtual reality space, but this could be a case like in the original Space Jam, where we see the tunes in their natural habitat, and they're all more traditionally animated.
Yeah, I do. I will say I do like seeing the picture of Bugs Bunny and then looking in the background and being like, I see Jabberjaw, I see the Flintstones, I see the Herculoids in the background.
There's also King Kong in there too.
Yeah. No, it's like I can like that. I just love this kind of stuff. I love this kind of Easter egg hunting, because it actually makes you want to watch the movie again just to see what characters they have hiding in the background, and actually gives them something to do. I really don't want to talk about the redesign, quote unquote, controversy, because it's really stupid for the most part. I will say, I think there's a better conversation to be had with the whole like, well, why can't a character be strong and sexy? And I can understand why some people got mad at Malcolm D. Lee saying, well, she was too sexy, so, and we wanted her to be strong, so we redesigned her. And I don't think the redesign's bad. Like, I'm not going to be one of those. I'm sorry, they're kind of creepy to me. Those people who are like, it's like, why did you de-sexy the bunny? Like it's I don't know.
Max, any thoughts on this first look on Space Jam: A New Legacy?
So my first question is cursing allowed on this podcast here?
Absolutely.
So this thing looks absolutely batshit insane.
Yeah.
And that's honestly why I'm kind of excited for it. I'll admit I'm pretty meh on the original Space Jam. I much prefer Looney Tunes back in action. But when I started hearing some of what the plot's going to be, that it's going to involve so many characters from the WB history, which is sort of like a Ready Player One bent to it, and the virtual reality aspect. And then these photos, I really like how Bugs in them look, blending with the real life backgrounds. So I don't know if it's going to be good or not, but I think the elements are there for it to, like Mike said, surpass the original. And I love that you keep using Mamma Mia, Here We Go Again as a reference point, because I couldn't agree more. The first Mamma Mia movie is fine, and Here We Go Again is absolutely fantastic. I'm hopeful. Look, I'm the type of person who, when I sit down and watch something, always hopes for the best. So let's see Bugs and LeBron and King Kong or whatever. Let's do it. I'm up for it.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of talent behind this movie, so I think it's going to be interesting to see like where exactly the movie goes. And to be fair, LeBron James is a better actor than Michael Jordan. So
100%. Like LeBron James in Trainwreck is absolutely delightful.
Yeah,
and the other element of this movie that has me excited is that Ryan Coogler produced it, and I think Ryan Coogler is such a brilliant creative mind.
I was just about to bring that up.
From what I heard, he's been very active as a producer. Sometimes someone will produce a movie and, not necessarily take a hugely active participation in it, but by all accounts, Coogler has been involved in many decisions. And so that for me is really exciting as well.
Yeah, hopefully this one's a lot more like passionate and invigorating than Tom and Jerry. That's all I want. That's all I ask for. So, but no, we'll just have to see. And like I said, we're not going to dwell on the stupid controversy about it. So,
yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, there's just not a whole lot to talk about with that. Just like a character can be sexy. There's nothing wrong with that. There just has to be more to it. All right, let's move on to City of Ghosts. Mike?
Let's.
Okay, so City of Ghosts is I describe it as a mixed media, sort of half documentary, half narrative series from Elizabeth Ito.
Yeah.
And she's worked as an animator for shows like Adventure Time and I think Steven Universe. And really, my general impressions of this series is that I think this is one of the best examples of how to do diversity and representation in a way that feels authentic. Like this would be a great series to show kids who want to learn more about cultures outside of their own. And even as an adult, I am not nearly familiar with all the different subcultures in Los Angeles. So each of these 6 episodes, I learned something new.
Yeah, so I was able to watch this ahead of time, and it's still one of my most popular tweets when I tweeted about it a few weeks ago. And this is one of the best cartoons of 2021 so far. It's an early front runner alongside Kid Cosmic as one of the best new shows that's out right now. And I do think it is because of that, just a different vibe that it takes with making it mostly a documentary. I wouldn't call it a mockumentary because it's not really comedy focused. It's more natural. It's like, let's follow these kids. It's like I describe it as if NPR's StoryCorp made an animated show. And if you know anything about StoryCorp, they're a subsection of I think NPR where they record conversations with random individuals, and they talk about their life and such. And it just really reminded me of that when I was watching this show. Max, your overall thoughts about the show?
I was honestly fairly blown away by this show, and I have to thank you guys for that because this never would have been on my radar if you didn't say, "Hey, watch this before the podcast." I pretty much everything Mike said is exactly my thoughts on it. I think its use of representation in a way that feels really organic and authentic is beautiful. I've lived in LA for a while, not anymore. So I was familiar with some of it, but still, even though this show is geared towards kids, and I turned to my wife when we were watching this and I was like, gosh, if we had kids, this is the exact type of show I'd want to show them because I learned so much in a way that never felt like a lame educational program. I was still super invested in the characters and the storytelling and the animation style, sort of the use of the stylized characters. And then I don't know if the backgrounds were rotoscoped, but they looked far more like almost real life backgrounds. And like you said, it has a documentary element to it. And what I really appreciated is that they interviewed real people who had these experiences and these connections and passions about Los Angeles and its various cultures. And the way it would integrate that into the characters that they represent in the show, I thought was so thoughtful. I wish there was more because there's only 6 episodes. I was like, oh, we're done already? I need more.
No, that's absolutely my response when I was finishing it up. So the whole story is it's about these group of kids who go around Los Angeles, and they're not Ghostbusters. They just are tasked with just trying to find out what's exactly going on with someone or a place or whatever, and they find out that it's usually ghost related. I mean, it's called City of Ghosts. It's not going to be like Cthulhu. Okay, so and I think the visual style is kind of like this, like what I want to kind of bring up first. It's like this cool indie lo-fi CGI look, and they take the route of like Gumball, where there's these hyper realistic backgrounds, but then every once in a while they'll like put a CGI bush there or something that will kind of blend well into like what they need to happen. And I think it all works. Like I love the character designs and like the animation. I think it's incredibly charming just from a visual standpoint. And I love all the different ghost designs. Like they do a good job of like varying like all the ghosts, and I like that everyone has like a very distinct look to them. Like I think my favorite is from episode 2 in Venice, where they meet Bagel. And he says basically this, well, a bagel with a little head on it. And I also love the one that they meet in Koreatown. The I forgot what Chepe.
That's probably the most unique looking of all the ghosts, because it looks almost nothing like the rest of them.
Yeah, because all the ghosts are kind of round in shape, and then they have like little things that differentiate them. Like in Lemire Park, the ghost who likes to drum and like rhythm and whatnot has like a little goatee and a hat. Or like Bob and Nancy, the mom Atomic Nancy has like rainbow spikes and such, and like kind of a cool Hello Kitty anime look to her facial expressions, and it all looks great. Like I'm not even bothered by the fact that this lo-fi look to it, like the simple shapes and whatnot. It's basically like like the evolution of Elizabeth Ito's art style, on top of like when she made that short for Cartoon Network, Welcome to My Life, which is about a monster kid going to school, and it has the same kind of documentary style to it. And it's like, a lot, like I said, a lot of people like to complain that all the cartoons look the same, even though every decade has had that same issue. So it's not really an issue. So be quiet. And sorry, it's just and
No,
this,
no,
but
no, sorry, I thought it was funny.
yeah, no, and so it's like this one stands out from the rest just because of the colors, the visual style, and I just adore it. And I also like when the ghosts talk about their lives and how they switch to like kind of like Duplo or Playmobil like figurines and such. But what do y'all think about the visual style?
I think I think I really like the sort of scrapbook aesthetic, when like you said, when the ghosts are kind of like describing their background, or like when the kids interview these people, and they take you on a journey of like, say, like, for example, in the first episode, Chef Joe describes her neighborhood, and all the different foods that she makes at her restaurant. Stuff like that is really cool.
Yeah, and I just man, I think like the characters are very expressive. Like I forgot which episode it was. I think it's Lemire Park, when the episode starts and you see Zelda, the leader of the group, singing, and then then her brother says like, "Okay, we're rolling," and she has that look on her face, like, really? Like, you didn't tell me, and it's like I'm going to recommend something at the end of this podcast, but it's the importance of character animation, because this movie, I mean, the show's not really a comedy, but there's still a lot of funny beats and like jokes to uh the show and how it's paced.
A lot of that humor comes from Jordan, who I don't think we don't ever see him, because he's always behind the camera. But his side comments, they kill me every time. Especially the running gag of like, mom said no eating the string.
Oh gosh. But I think like what really caught me about this show is its vibe, its atmosphere. This is probably the most low key cartoon I've seen in like probably forever. Like as much as I love like the Midnight Gospel with the whole podcast style of like like dialogue, that's in that show, it's still pretty frantic and chaotic. It's still that Adventure Time Pendleton Ward style. But here it's like if you're not careful, you could probably fall asleep accidentally to City of Ghosts. Just because it's like the lo-fi beats and the rhythms and just everyone talks in a very soft voice and yeah, like you said, Max, the main appeal or like one of the big marketing points when I got the press release for this show was that there's no like real celebrity voice casting stuff. They don't have like a special guest star like Jeff Bennett or Tara Strong or whatever. It's all local people from the area. And on one hand, when you hear that, it's like, oh gosh, everyone's going to sound so wooden and stilted, but they don't. Everyone sounds so natural. It's like they were just having a conversation. And I don't know how they did that, but I have to give them kudos for that.
I'm glad you brought that up, because one of the things I found most striking was how naturalistic and yet not dull the dialogue sounded. Especially with the child actors, that's difficult. They left in ums or pauses or little mistakes they made, and it felt like a really smart choice because the show was so intent on showing us and diving into these rich cultures, and so to have the whole thing with this naturalistic feel, it just felt like tonally consistent. I can't recall seeing at least a children's animated program that is paced this deliberately. There's nothing madcap or zany about it, which is a nice contrast.
Yeah, no, Mike, any thoughts about this?
Something else, and Max, you had brought this up earlier, how it's an educational program that doesn't that isn't it's not like forcing a message down your throat, and it doesn't talk down to its audience, which I think is why I recommend this one so highly for elementary students, because it's an important history lesson, but it's also still entertaining, because these stories, again, from real people, are just, they would have been compelling without the packaging of an animated series. Like if this was like just an audio podcast, I would still get a lot of enjoyment out of it. So I have to give credit to the animators and the editors, for the pacing of the series, that like they kept each episode, like they kept each episode engaging, like regardless of how just kind of chill and low stakes the situations were.
Yeah, and I was really caught off guard because, like, when I was jumping into this, it's like, oh, I'll check this out. It's a new animated series. I'll write a review for it. I was caught off guard of how mature it all is, like in a good way. Like, it's not like what we've seen in like Steven Universe or Adventure Time, where they have a zany premise, but that's how they tackle stuff like mental health and what have you. This one says it's more grounded, and I think that the moment it started to really click with me is when I watched through the series a second time with my sister. And it's like when they like in the first two episodes I think are like where I started noticing it was when the ghost was talking and it was saying like, oh yeah, we used to have a lot of Japanese people in this side of town. They would walk because it was just that much of a distance between Los Angeles and little Tokyo. And then it's just like there's just something in the dialogue that catches you if you're paying attention, and it's like, oh, there's some gentrification commentary here, that's connected to like Chef Joe, who's like, I wanted to be like a chef in like a different part of town, and I didn't want to go to that bougie fancy part of the town. And then in the second episode, when they interview the ghost Bagel, and just hearing them talk about art and skateboarding and such, and like how the Thomas is like, so are there still artists in Venice? And he's like, oh yeah, no, there are still artists that um like get inspired by the artists before us, and then they carry that on to make Venice what it is. And then it's like, do you have any advice to the people about Venice? And and this clip is on YouTube, so you can find it. It's when he's saying like, don't try to change what makes Venice Venice. And something about that hit me, because I can understand it's like we got like to make the world around us more polished and friendly looking, but it's also taking away the spirit and the soul of the city or where you live. And I just think that's so cool that's the kind of maturity we see in this show. Like, but that's just me for how I kind of took away from these conversations they have with the ghosts.
Um, another example of that is the episode of Lemert Park, uh, when they were talking about, you know, the difference between how the place used to be just filled with like music on every corner of the street, and like people drumming in the parks, but then once the gates went up, the music stopped. And like so like something that like a lot of these stories with the ghosts kind of involve like, well, with most ghost stories, usually there's some sort of unfinished business. And I think a great example of that is in the Lamart Park episode, the drummer ghost. You know, he kind of misses that sound in the streets. So that was, I think that one, and Tavangar are two of my favorite episodes of the series.
Yeah, I was about to bring up Tuvangar because it's also a different approach to ghosts per se. It's like there are spirits, but it's not like what they've been seeing throughout the previous episodes. And it's just so fun to talk about this show because it just surprised me so much. And I think I also like Koreatown, and just how the ghost there, Chepe, was like worried and was going to miss the person that was thinking about leaving for school. And just, it's all like family, legacy, culture. It's just so good.
Yeah, Tavanger was definitely the episode that I found the most interesting, just because it was literally a culture and a people I was utterly unfamiliar with.
Mm-hmm.
And it honestly sort of made me feel bad that there was this big gap in my knowledge. But you're talking about like when you knew you were hooked or what moments spoke to you. I love food culture, and I watch like an overwhelming amount of cooking television.
Mm-hmm.
So in the first episode where it shows the chef and the girl making the dumplings, that's when I was immediately taken in. I thought the attention to detail and the time they just put in that scene to show what goes into it, how to properly crease it, how to sear it on one side and then put the top on to steam it, I thought was just so beautiful. And then in Bob and Nancy, obviously, for your listeners who don't know, I produce theater. I'm a theater guy. So that episode spoke to me a lot, exploring the marionette theater and all the shifting culture in theater in LA. I thought was so fascinating.
Mike, did you have any moments that really just connected with you?
In episode 5, when Nancy was describing the jukebox and how all of the local bands, all like the local bands were like pretty much introducing themselves through their own 45s, and that's how new music was discovered. That was something that kind of hit me pretty hard.
Yeah, no, it's just the show. Like, I really can't find a lot of complaints about this show, or it's something I would say that's worth criticizing outside of we want more. Like, and it's also very good in being inclusive. Like, we see Thomas, who introduces themselves as like non-binary. They and uses they and them pronouns, and then like I think Tuvangar had like the person they go meet. It's like to say like I'm usually walking around this park with my two moms and such, and it feels modern, and it just but the characters don't feel like. I think a problem with a lot of modern shows and films is sometimes when they try to capture like what's the energy, what's the spirit right now. It's like it's very forced and contrived, like mostly in just how people talk. It's like that whole Emoji Movie kind of thing where it's like, well, this would have been a thing 2 years ago, but now it's out now, and hey. But no, like I said, I just want more of this show, and I hope Netflix gives us more, and I hope this show is popular enough in its viewership to warrant more, because I feel like you could do more with Los Angeles, or if Elizabeth Ito wanted to, she could do this with different parts of the U.S. and such, because I could see that this being a very like kind of a cool way to introduce American culture, or like what you would think is American culture, or just like the origins of where it came from and such.
That's such a fascinating idea I never thought of. And now my mind is just racing with, even just in New York where I live, the myriad neighborhoods and cultures and things that have been lost due to either homogenization or gentrification. Wow, there could be just so many cities. That's such a great idea.
Yeah, so Elizabeth Ito, if you're listening to this, I'm open. I'm open for Austin. Like, if you want to come to Austin, Texas.
Yeah, come on to New York. I'll show you around, Elizabeth. I'll take you backstage to some Broadway once it's back open, and we'll get some great episodes made.
Yeah. No,
Yeah, I love this idea, and I know no Nomadland are like treaded similar ground, but I would love to see like a season 2 or 3 of City of Ghosts that covers sort of like the flyover states. That man, the show has so many story opportunities that I would love to see more. I would love to see more things like it in the future.
Yeah, no. So yeah, it's like it's tough. I think this might be my favorite cartoon right now, or at least my favorite new cartoon of 2021 so far. Just it's unique, and this isn't like a bump against Kid Cosmic. They're basically tied for me. But it's like there's just something so approachable and universal about City of Ghosts, and I hope Netflix does the right thing and gives Ito more seasons to do, because I could see this being like a multi-season thing if she wanted to. Of course, I think like if she wants to do like more or less or whatever, I'll be fine with that. But I want more.
Same.
There's just one other point I'd like to bring up, if that's okay.
Go ahead.
We talked early on about the representation, and certainly, it delves into Korean culture and Tavangar culture. But the one thing that really stood out to me that I was not expecting was just how casually the character Thomas, when being interviewed, mentions that they use they them pronouns,
Mm-hmm.
which I thought was beautiful and such great representation to see non-binary child in this Netflix show. And I love when things are just like casually and organically weaved in, because that to me is what feels most authentic. So yeah, I just wanted to bring that up because that really made me happy.
Yeah, and I will say one of my favorite little design details is whenever they're interviewing someone, they have a piece of cardboard hang up, and you can see Zelda's just
Yeah.
kind of holding off screen, holding it off screen, and
That was delightful. That had such a handmade, like, be kind, rewind quality to it.
oh
Yeah,
man,
I love those small details like that.
and I love in the second episode in Venice when they're waiting at the garbage monster, and then they hear something rustling in the bushes, and it turns out it's that one kid, and he's just like, I heard you guys say donuts. And I don't know why that just made me so laugh so hard. Just
the
the
show was
deadpan. Go ahead.
the show was funny too. I mean, I think in the way we've all described it, deliberately paced, educational, it sounds a certain way, but I was laughing pretty consistently too. There are so many moments, even just of like the kid characters, like their naivete and childlike wonder to discover this new stuff made me laugh.
Yeah, no, it just. I mean, if y'all couldn't already tell, watch this show. Please watch this show
Yes.
for.
Yes, absolutely.
So
I plan on telling my sister about it so she can show my nephew, who is pretty much exactly the right age where I think they'd get a lot out of it.
yeah, no. I mean, like for me, I always kind of worry about like because I don't have kids, I'm single. I have a niece, and sometimes I'm not entirely sure what to show her, but I feel like she would get a huge kick out of this because it's always like I can show her any of the major stuff like Boss Baby, Minions, and whatever, and then I go a little too far into the artsy direction with something like Ernest and Celestine, and it's like Lost. But then I go into like Boy in the World, and it's like she's hooked, and it's like that Patton Oswalt joke. It's like, so I don't know anymore. Next time I show my daughter Finding Nemo, I'm also going to show her Apocalypse Now and see what happens. But that's a great joke. But I mean, I only told
That's
part
pretty
of it.
much how, when I have kids, I intend to raise them. I'm like, all right, kids, today we're gonna watch Bambi and Silence of the Lambs, and we'll see what sticks.
So yeah, I guess it's time to move on to Disney. Mike, would you like to start us off?
Yep. So this is our feature presentation, Raya and the Last Dragon, the 59th feature film. Wow, can you believe that?
Yeah.
Directed by Don Hall and Carlos Lopez Estrada. Everyone, please see Blindsiding.
Yeah.
And written by I'm gonna butcher this name. Ki Nguyen and Adele Lim. So the movie takes place in the fantasy world of Kumandra, which is basically the shape of like a dragon, where humans and dragons live together in harmony. But when an evil force threatened the land, the dragons sacrificed themselves to save humanity. Now, 500 years later, that same evil has returned, and it's up to a lone warrior, Raya, played by Kelly Marie Tran, to track down the legendary last dragon to restore the fractured land and its divided people. So Max, since I know you saw this in theaters, first thing I have to ask is, what did you think of the short?
Okay, I just want to clarify that yes, I did see it in theaters, but for those who are concerned, my wife and I did a private movie party, so we rented the theater just for us. So it was the ultimate way to be safe in this time of COVID. I thought the short was fantastic. I don't know how much spoilers you want me to go into, but I will say it is utterly silent. There's no dialogue whatsoever. The animation style, particularly its use of rain and reflection, was stunning. And it's such a sweet, simple story with a lot of dance elements. And I thought the way the dance movements were animated was so spectacular. I have to think they sort of filmed professional dancers as reference points to then animated it to it, because just the choreography alone for the animated characters dancing was delightful. Just really a great example of wordless storytelling.
Yeah, from what I remember hearing, I think they did actually get a professional dance duo. Um, I forgot what they were on a dancing show. I forgot what the show was. It's not So You Think You Can Dance or Dancing with the
Oh, maybe
Stars.
Dancing with the Stars. Let
Well,
me
it
see if I can.
no, but I forgot. But I do know the duo that were in Men in Black International, who played the aliens, um, that showed up in the club and such, were also on that show. So I don't think it's Dancing with the Stars. I think it's I mean, I don't know.
World of Dance. There we go.
There we go.
Okay, that sounds better because I was just like, I
Uh,
don't. Yeah, go ahead.
Their names are Keone and Marie Madrid, who were married and were on World of Dance.
Cool. I know. Unfortunately, Mike and I watched this through Disney Plus, and so we did not get the short, even though they could have easily packed it in with the $30 asking price or $30+ if you're not from America, because apparently Canada has to pay 50. So, yikes. You might as well just rent out an entire theater at that point.
That's what I did, although I also bought Premiere Access so I could watch it again. But
yeah, no. But that's cool. The short sounds great. Maybe Mike and I will talk about it at a later date when it comes out.
I'm sure they'll put it on Disney Plus soon enough. That's weird that it's not there. That's a shame.
According to Wikipedia, the short will be coming to Disney Plus in June. So we will talk about it then.
Becomes free.
Yeah. Yep. No, it's like I wish I wish I wasn't in a state that's in like the red in terms of the pandemic. So yeah, I'm not very comfortable going to a theater or anywhere that's not me, work, or going to the grocery store.
Sure.
So Mike, let's talk about our overall thoughts of Raya before we get to it. Mike, what did you think about it?
I'm not going to rank this among the Disney revival films just yet because I want to see it a couple times. But just off my first impression, I love this movie. I think the core premise of like, you know, a fantasy world with humans and dragons is just kind of something that's pitched right over the plate. So, and I know like on a surface level, this looks like it's grabbing influence from, from Avatar: The Last Airbender and other like similar fantasy settings. But I think the way that like the specific way that they handle it here is just unique enough because of the characters and their emotional journey that I was hooked from start to finish.
Awesome. Max, what did you think?
Yeah, I was fairly overwhelmed by this movie. I'm sure it being like the first time I've been in a movie theater in a long time lent towards that, but from frame one until the end, I was completely taken by this movie. I think it's so hopeful and optimistic in its presentation of the way humans can relate to each other, and we can dive more into it after, I'm sure. But just every element of it, from the music to the vocal performances, the animation style, the character design, its use of Southeast Asian culture, really just took me on an amazing emotional journey that I don't think I could have loved more. I'm not sure there's anything I would change about this.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I think maybe it's just because I've been needing a big budget animated film to fill the void of in between all of the indie animation stuff and foreign film stuff that Mike and I talk about. I really love this film also, and I'm not saying this because I'm trying to justify the $30 I spent, but uh no, but honestly, I was a very big fan of this movie. I like the animation, the action, and we'll get into this a little more. It's also one of Disney's darker movies, and
Certainly.
We'll get into that. But I like the characters. I like the story of how it's dealing with like trust, dealing with grief and loss and love, and it feels like it's a refreshing feeling movie because as much as I've liked a lot of the Disney's revival era. I think this is their best film since 2016 because as much as I like Ralph Breaks the Internet and Frozen 2, I would still consider them the weaker parts of it. So, and I would, and like for those 2 years, I always thought like, well, yeah, Spider Verse and Mirai deserved the acclaim more than Ralph Breaks the Internet, and I Lost My Body and Klaus deserved it more than Frozen 2, which I think even the Academy was just like, we're just going to give it a Toy Story 4. um, and Frozen 2 didn't even get nominated that year, from what I remember. But yeah, where should we start with this movie? Like, should we start with just the overall story, I guess, or would you all like to start with something a little more specific?
How about let's start with the fact that this is Kelly Marie Tran's first leading role. It's not her first voice performance because she was also in Cruise: A New Age, but this is like her. This is like really her time to shine as an actress, and I think she does an incredible job.
Yeah, I thought Kelly Marie Tran carried this movie very, very well. And she's a good actress. I've always known she's a good actress. I just wish everyone else on the internet knew about that. And you can especially see that when in Crude's A New Age, where she's just having a blast as a character. And it was very good because I think Disney, it did give Kelly Marie Tran the lead role just as an apology for what happened. I'm not saying it's true, but it's hard not to think about that a little. Because of just how screwed over she got from like the harassment for The Last Jedi, and then basically getting written right to the very edge of the corner in Rise of Skywalker. It's kind of hard not to see like, hey, sorry, let's give you the role, but I also think she's great in the role. So whatever, like even if all that stuff wasn't looming around this film, I thought she was fantastic. And so, like, where would you like to go next?
Max, what about you?
Well, I mentioned how I found it to be so hopeful and optimistic. And to that point, I might make the argument that the word trust has never been said more times than any other film ever made. That's probably hyperbolic, but there's a very deep-seated message of trust and the complexities of trust and who you can and should trust and what trust can mean between people who view themselves as other, that I found really poignant and relevant to our constantly discourse-laden, conflicted society, which made the whole thing have quite an emotional punch for me.
In trust in this world is kind of treated like a commodity. And it's something that people take. Some of them will take for granted, but others are more guarded than others. And I like how this movie really explores that more than I think any other animated film, let alone from Disney.
Yeah, no, it was very interesting to see how they approached the theme of it. Like just because of the separation of the kingdoms and such, of course, Raya was very much like, I don't trust anyone. But then to see her father be like, well, you know what? I'm optimistic. I think we can all come together again. And I would argue that like all the kingdoms, like because you have heart, fang, spine, tail, and am I missing the other ones? Or
Spine?
yes, I said okay, yeah, so I think I said them all.
Oh, okay, sorry.
No, it's fine. I was just trying to make sure it's like, do I have like am I not, hopefully I'm not missing. So yeah, heart, fang, spine, tail, and talon. Talon was the one I was thinking of.
There we go.
And you can kind of get like, for me, like how, like I think there's like a symbolicness to it all. Like the heart is the most optimistic, fang is the most aggressive, spine is like the most defensive, I would argue, because it's like all of them are warriors and they really just do fight. And then tail is like tricky. It's a you got to pay attention to it. And then Talon, it's like, well, we know the con baby from there. It's just like just trust issues there because of stealing and what we find out about that kingdom. And it's just like I don't think I've seen a film really tackle trust in such a way. Like there's always those mistrust plot points and like you lied to me plot like story beats, but I've never seen it like examined with all these characters and such, and like in this way. And I just give him kudos for that.
So something else I want to dive into is, well, the world itself. Um, I like how Kumandra is basically like the shape of a dragon, and how when like when trust is broken, so too is the land. Like they like when the Droon kind of takes over, that's when people become physically distant from each other. And I think like the physical the visual metaphor of trust is like really is captured really quite well.
Yeah, no, and yeah, like you said with the distance thing, because then every kingdom, well, for except for Spine, like built their land around water, and you're disconnected from the land, and just like in that small little world detail. And I really like this cast of characters. I can understand if some people have issues with some of them, but I feel like just how they handle stuff like love and grief and like loss. Like there's all these different points to it. Like I think oh, what's his name? I think Tong is his name.
Yeah.
Played by Benedict Wong. And it's interesting to see what happened to his kingdom. And how like they were head on and ready to attack the monstrous force, but then they all passed away. And I will say I love the little character detail of Tong where they look over and there's an empty crib, and then his little story arc with Noi, the little con baby, and just how it's like when these people are brought together, they like fill a piece of their like that was missing and such. And it's just like I just think this movie's a lot smarter than I mean I don't know how some people are responding to the themes and commentary or like the storytelling with this film, but I feel like it's a lot deeper than like once you dive into it.
I agree with that.
And I feel like there's always that thing, and it's like, oh well, it's Disney, so it's going to be very surface level. No, don't say that. That's not true. um, and it's just, I mean, but like, what do you guys think about the characters, or what do you all think about the characters?
I love how we sort of start when it cuts to 6 years later, just with Raya and Tuk Tuk, who, by the way, nice job again from Alan Tudyk playing a character that is only making animal noises. I remember when he was doing interviews for Moana, he's like, you too can go to Juilliard, so then you could play a chicken. So I was like, well, now he could say you too can go to Juilliard, so you could play a pill bug armadillo mixture. But so, we start out with Raya and Tuk Tuk, and I like how on her journey, she just continues to grow her band of misfits and adventurers, starting with Sisu and then Boone and Tong and Noi, the baby with the animals. And it's a really nice way to sort of, like you were saying, get to hear the different experiences of people from different parts of Kumandra, and how the Droon plague affected each of them differently based on the precautions they had taken, their kingdom had taken, and then as it relates to the literal names of their kingdom, which, as you were saying, I think suggests a certain shared personality trait between those people. And every time a new character was introduced, I just fell in love with them too. They're also unique and fun. Certainly some of them fit more into the mold of the silly sidekick character, but even that, what I felt was an approach we hadn't necessarily seen before. Like a con baby who runs around with these monkey-esque creatures, like that was so utterly delightful. And then when she stuck around and like got on the boat and joined the gang, I was just like, this is such a fun choice. And then Tong too, I think Tong is a great character because he's another classic example of what's inside is not necessarily what you see on the outside. When you first meet him, you think he's this gruff warrior, and he's actually a big softy who just misses his family and his village.
Yeah, I love.
And Benedict Wong, I thought, did such a great job with that character.
Agreed.
Yeah, Tong is probably the funniest character. Or like I said, I think he's my favorite character just because he's trying to act tough, but you can tell he's just really not pulling it off. And then it's like even Raya was like, "You don't know what you're going to be doing now, huh?" It's like, "Of course I do. I'm thinking about the plan right now, and it's going to be brutal. Yep. It's going to take 2 weeks to clean it up." I'm always a little worried about how Disney approaches kid characters, but I really liked Buon and his very like slick business like endeavor, and like when he's like, I don't know if I want to take that's a lot of jade. Well then, everybody get like take a seat, relax, and your order is to go. And then Noi with the 3 little monkeys, which even though they're monkeys, they still I could still notice like little character beats that makes them different. And I did love like when Raya kind of busts Noi and they're walking away and the tiniest monkey stays behind. And I says like because Raya was like, "What happened to your family?" And then he just does like all that little character pose does is like that's all you need. It's good silent storytelling. So let's talk about what may be the one thing that's kind of making or breaking this for people. Let's talk about Sisu, the dragon voiced by Awkwafina herself. What do y'all think about Sisu and how she was handled? Like on one hand, I do think like Awkwafina is a very distinct person, and it's not like she like you can't tell it's her. You can tell it's her. Like it's not like a Kubo and the Two Strings situation where you hear that Beatles voiced by Matthew McConaughey, and then you're like, wait, what? And it's like here, it's like, oh yeah, that's Awkwafina. But I like the idea of Sisu being this mediocre dragon, like because otherwise she'd be like this genie or Maui like entity, but then she's also fits in with the whole thing of dealing with grief, loss, and trust because it's like she was trusted by her dragon siblings to make sure the world's okay, and it's just like, okay, well, or it's just like how Sisu says, it's like that like that one kid in a group project that doesn't pull their weight but still gets credit.
But I like how that's kind of like almost a deliberate inversion of that like that genie character where like instead of being the all-powerful force of nature, they're more or less just like a commoner who just happens to be who happens to still be a mythical creature. But it like that kind of ties into the theme of trust again, because there's a mutual trust between her and her siblings, and that's how they ultimately saved humanity twice. The first time where the dragons sacrificed themselves for the humans, and the second time once all peace was restored.
So Max, what do you think about Sisu as a character?
I love Sisu. Certainly, I think there's a lesser version of this movie where they get someone to, kind of be or do the Awkwafina thing as his character. But the fact that it's actually Awkwafina, who I think is an incredibly talented actress and not just a comedian with a distinct voice. I mean, if you watch The Farewell, you'll see that she's.
Oh my gosh, that was a great movie.
Yeah, just really remarkable. And I sort of love how in terms of power and what she accomplished, she was maybe the lesser of the dragons. But that also makes it more of a journey for both Sisu and Raya. It's not just a quick fix or an all magical being who can, accomplish everything. And I think, when it's sort of revealed later on, that all of her siblings entrusted her with the gem, it explains and helps inform the sort of film long debate that goes on between Sisu and Raya, who are on very different sides of the trust debate that unfolds. Sisu has firsthand knowledge of how trust can impact, whereas Raya has the exact opposite of experience from when she was betrayed by Namari and Fang tribe. So on top of that, I just thought Sisu was super funny. I think the Disney animal sidekick character she most reminds me of is Mushu.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Both in terms of, sort of what kind of creature they are, but also what Awkwafina is doing here and what Eddie Murphy did there. I think there's a parallel to be drawn.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, I understand. Like, in this huge fantastical world, I can understand why some people think Aquafina like sticks out and just like her dialogue. I wasn't that distracted by it. Like, or at least I didn't find it as detrimental as some people do. Like the very modern lingo and such.
It's honestly not, and it's not any more distracting than characters like Genie or Mushu, or injecting modern lingo into a fantasy setting. At the very least, I would rather see more of Sisu than, say, the gargoyles from Hunchback of Notre Dame.
Yeah, and honestly, I think Mushu from Mulan is way more distracting as a like the side character who's voiced by a famous comedian. And like, and of course, like, some people kind of like, oh well, the most recent trailer was not great to them because it like focused on the more juvenile humor. The joke that they end the trailer on is actually not that long of a joke. It's just like it's just Sisu being like excited about being in a human body and such, and the whole thing like, look how close my butt is to my head. And it's just like they do cut out the like that's going to make eating a lot easier. Even though I don't think it was that bad of a joke, but
it was fine.
It was fine. Like, I understand. Go ahead.
I was just say I actually have a pretty short leash for when it comes to like heavily laden pop culture jokes in animated films. And like there's a good portion of DreamWorks films where I roll my eyes at some of the jokes and stuff they're talking about. I was never once distracted or taken out of it here. Even that joke I thought was funny and made perfect sense in context, considering she had just changed from dragon to human. And by the way, her human form looks so much like Awkwafina. It was impeccable.
They do a lot of good like animation sequences and like gags with Sisu as like a dragon and human. I love the joke. I love like the gag when they're about to leap over to get that first gem from the tail tribe, and it's like Raya swings over with Sisu, but then they stop halfway, and she's like, "Oh, you're doing a swinging over to get to the other side thing. Okay, hold on." And then you see Sisu's like other half is still stuck to the other side.
Yeah.
And no, and then I love like when they're escaping, and then Raya looks back and Sisu's trying to walk on all four, and Raya's like, no, just get up here. It's walk on two. And it's like, oh right. And it was just like, is this the funniest Disney film I've seen? No, but I think it's still pretty funny and good overall. I don't know. I guess to me, I disagree with a lot of the dissenting opinions that the dialogue is too modern or like pseudo meta in a way. It's like I don't agree with that. But I will say I do like how this film takes an approach to villains. Like as much as Namari is kind of a villain, I like that they take the approach of a more nebulous villain in this one instead of just having a straightforward Disney villain. And I know some people have been like, why can't Disney go back to making like a Frollo or a Jafar or something like that? And so it's like, I'm fine with them not doing that. I think it kind of depends on the movie, but I also understand like because Disney did kind of use and abuse the whole twist villain thing throughout the 2010s. Like I think the last kind of traditional, well, quote unquote traditional Disney villain was Tamatoa from Moana. But even then, he was more of like an obstacle to get past than a true villain. I mean, like, what do you?
I
Yeah,
do
what do you
miss
think?
the traditional villain, but I also think the Droon in this movie is a much scarier and more a more esoteric threat. But also, again, we've been saying this word a lot tonight, but trust is sort of like its own
Yep.
antagonist in a sense, and the fact that like everyone is sort of like looking out for themselves until they kind of realize that the only way the only way to survive is to work together.
Yeah, Mike, you said exactly what I was gonna say. The real villain of this movie is distrust. And I like that there's no main villain. There are antagonists who have issues with one another, but I think it makes it more mature and more complex for this fantasy world and the journey they're on to not have, one big bad person. I mean, you could argue that Namari's mother to a certain extent is the most villainous, but even so, her reasoning is more how do I put this? Just it makes more sense than just sort of this big bad villain like Frollo or Ursula, sort of thing. And I think go ahead, sorry.
And if we're gonna compare this to like Avatar: The Last Airbender, there isn't like a Fire Lord Ozai who's like controlling the large threat. There's a darkness, and everyone plays some sort of role in the fate of the world.
Yeah, no, I'm all for more symbolic villains. That's kind of why like Studio Ghibli is so popular. There's no straightforward bad guy or like I watch a lot of foreign animated films. A lot of times the villain is more symbolic than literal and such, and that just makes for a more interesting villain, a more interesting story when there is no like straight up villain or like when I was watching Nocturna, which is a great animated film that G Kids brought over. The villain is like this big shadowy monster. It's like it's not just like, oh, I want to control the night and everyone in their dreams. No, it's a monster. It's like monster symbolic of the main character's fear of the dark, and it just worked. I think it all just kind of depends on what kind of story you want to tell. So that's just how I feel about it. But I do
I
like no. Go ahead.
No, you finish. I'm sorry.
But I do think Namari is a good pseudo antagonist to because it's like she's so driven in her ways and then realizes that it's like, hey, we gotta work together, and then she sees Raya like spoilers. I guess we're gonna talk a little bit about the ending, where Raya sacrifices herself first to say like, hey, we need when she finally realizes we need to work together, and then Namario is like, no, how can I trust you? And it's like, well, I'll make the first move, and Rhea gets turned to stone. Um, so I mean, but that's what I have to say. So
Well, you sort of brought up where I wanted to go, and I think the relationship between Raya and Namari is fascinating, and a little more complex than just hero villain. Because I really think if you were to watch this film from the perspective of Namari, and if Fang Tribe was where we started instead of Heart, Namari would have been the hero just as much. It could have been called Namari and the Last Dragon. But what I found particularly interesting, and I wouldn't necessarily bring this up had I not read an interview with Kelly Marie Tran in Vanity Fair, is when I was watching this movie and their relationship, I sort of honed in on that it was, their feelings towards each other and discussion was a little bit more than friendship. I saw a
Ooh.
flirtatious vibe and a queer interest. And in her Vanity Fair interview, Kelly Marie Tran said, when I voiced Raya, I thought of her as queer. And that's pretty much as far as, she's not Disney herself or the filmmakers, but as far as any, main actor in a Disney animated film has gone to say that. And so I really appreciated that she said that. And it sort of verified or vindicated some of the feelings I had, because I had similar feelings in Frozen 2, but I think this movie is even more overt about it.
I agree. I think that's a very good observation, and I think what Kelly Marie Tran said was very spot on, because there is definitely that kind of dynamic between the two characters. It's a little more than just they were good friends. I mean, technically, if you want to criticize their friendship, they only knew each other for a few hours before Namari just betrays her. But Mike, what did you want to say?
To quote the movie, Kelly Marie Tran took the first step by blatantly saying in that interview that she views Raya as queer. I wish though that like the writers and the directors committed a little bit more to defining their relationship. But I also understand that, as Cam pointed out, they literally only knew each other for a few hours before the betrayal.
I mean, I just say that as a joke because I know some people will criticize it like that, but it's just also like, but
I mean, to be fair, like the very quick romance is a trope of Disney animated films, anyways.
Yeah,
Right,
absolutely.
So.
No, but I think that's it for really so much of the story. But this is a gorgeous movie. Like, oh my goodness, I think Disney finally hit that next evolution of their animation style, because I agree with some people I've seen talk about saying like they like how the humans look, the textures of the skin and such. Where like I love Moana, but some of the characters looked a little too smooth, like they were like really high end statues or figurines. Not like that they were like dead eyed and were stiff, but just like that texture look. It's kind of like if it's not like I wanted to say it's kind of like Earwig and a Witch, but I think that's a little harsh just to compare for Moana. Just that it's that texture look of the skin and such. And here I think they hit that like out of the park. And I like the designs of these characters. And Tong, again, best character, has probably the most varied facial expressions out of all the characters that I've seen, or at least he's one of the most expressive. I love when they're talking about like the plan of how to take back the last part of the gym, and then they hear Sisu's plan, and his face is just like, what? And I just love the animation and everything's so gorgeous. And Mike, you're going to talk about your favorite thing of how far has a studio come with their water physics?
Yeah, I brought that up in my quick thought review that ever since like Moana, I've been consistently impressed with the way that Disney handles water. Water and hair are some of the hardest things to get right in CG animation, and I think Raya and the Last Dragon nails both of them. I also like how they incorporate a lot of 2D animation during like the opening story introduction to Raya and Boone describing each of their plans. And anytime like a mainstream movie like this like sneaks in 2D animation, I like it always gets a rise out of me.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I loved the kind of Spider-Verse look to like Boone's plant, It's like we're in an age now where CGI can really be stretched past its previous limitations, and I just adore that.
Yeah, I agree. The movie is absolutely gorgeous. The water, the hair. I loved, like you said, the sort of more 2D animation elements. And there are also a lot of moments interspersed throughout where stylistically it makes some bold choices with split screens or zoom ins or punch ins, however you want to describe it, that felt really unique to this project that I loved. I also loved the title treatments for when we went to the different tribes or areas. I thought that was so beautifully done. It's just a feast for the eyes. You know, I want to watch it again just to take in all the details, like the way the different cities were built. There's so much to look at. Every ounce of the frame is filled with stuff to pay attention to.
Yeah, and I think my favorite like animation sequence is Sisu flying around in the air for like the first time. And just the music and how it zooms up as she goes through a cloud and then falls like freestyle down, like back down to the earth. Like, oh, it reminds me of How to Train Your Dragon in that regard. So you could feel the weight and the wind against you, and like going through the cloud and such, and just her happiness. And it's just like, I like, there's a lot to criticize with Disney, but there's a reason why their animation teams are some of the best around. They take note of these little details and such, where either some studios don't think about it or they can't. And you can argue, it's like, well, do they need to spend like $200 million? Well, if you want them to keep looking like this, either they have to get really creative, or like that's just how it's going to be.
Speaking of the music, how great is James Newton Howard's score? Especially Sisu's theme as she's taking flight for the first time. That might be one of my favorite pieces of music of the year so far.
Yeah, the music's gorgeous.
James Newton Howard hadn't worked with Disney in a while. I like his scores for Treasure Planet and Atlantis a lot. So it was really nice to see him reteam with them, but this might be his best work he's done with Disney. There's like a theme that goes with Raya that's sort of like women chanting or singing this very empowering theme. I remember it kicked in especially when she sort of opened the gates at Spine when Namari's on the other side. That was just awesome. It was like a real like pump your fist kind of moment.
Yeah, and I also like the sequence when like Raya is just like has had it with Namari's stubbornness, and it's just walking past everyone running away, and it's just, oh, it's so good. And the fight sequences are great, and I don't think I've seen a lot of Disney films where fighting is like a major part of their movies. Like I think more of like DreamWorks, like with Kung Fu Panda and such, where fight choreography was a major part in like the Kung Fu Panda films and such. So it was very refreshing to see Disney, like while still having its Disney elements, be able to like not only have a slightly darker story, but also have like pretty good action as well.
Yeah, the action sequences in here are like just below the Kung Fu Panda franchise. I think the animation or the action sequences are some of the best choreographed I've seen in an animated feature.
Yeah, I brought up Atlantis and Treasure Planet in terms of the score, and someone earlier had mentioned how this is one of the more serious or violent Disney movies. Like, I would think maybe since Atlantis, this is the Disney animated film with the most action and fighting. And one of the reasons I love this movie, apart from the emotional texture and the characters, is just taken as like a fantasy action adventure. It really excels at that. You know, it has a propulsive adventure plot. It has a quest for pieces around the world, but there are sword fights, there's sort of heist sequences, there's all this stuff that was just thrilling and gave me, that sort of exhilarating rise you get when you're watching well done action cinema.
Yeah, and again, kudos to Disney for doing something like this. I feel like it's been forever, or they've relegated their action to like the Star Wars or Marvel movies. and to see it just kind of brought back here, like to their main work, is great. And the voice cast is all very good. Of course, we've talked about Kelly Marie Tran, Aquafina, and Benedict Wong, and of course the best boy, Alan Tudyk. But I also like Daniel Day Kim as Chief Benna. And first of all, I loved seeing a comment earlier today saying, like, someone on Twitter was saying they were able to get Daniel Day Kim's cheekbones into his character.
Nice. I saw that too.
And I loved Thalia Tran as Noi, and Isaac Wong as Buon was like I said, child characters in Disney movies are such a risk. It's a spinning plate situation. It's just like you have to nail these kind of characters and their performances, or they come off really annoying or not interesting. But Isaac Wang and Thalia Tran were able to still bring like a lot of nuance to the characters and such. And of course, Noi had some really good comedic animation attached to her. And I love like when Raya is chasing after her and her three monkeys. And it's like they leap over Raya, and Raya's just looking at him, and then Noi is just doing that slow like mouthing of like bye bye. And and while it's not a big role, I still like Sandra Oh as Verona, Namari's mom, and I liked Gemma Chan as Namari, and it's a very good cast. Like, and that's what I like about Disney animated films, where a lot of studios tend to like really hype up who they have in their casts, because like a lot of trailers will have like a cast listing. Here it's just like, who can we get to be the best, like who could be the best person of this character and such.
Yeah, it's like Disney hires actors to play these characters, not celebrities, which is what DreamWorks was lambasted for throughout most of the 2000s. And something that I find hilarious is on Wikipedia, there's a controversy section that says the film was criticized for the lack of Southeast Asian representation, but pretty much everyone in the cast is of East Asian heritage. Kelly Marie Tran is Vietnamese. I'm not sure specifically where the rest of them where the rest of them fall ethnic wise, but I just find it funny how the controversy is just so it's very pedantic when it comes to the voice casts.
Yeah, there's the controversy section of the Wikipedia entry is very like, I mean, it's like this, but whatever. I'm not the king of the mountain or whatever, but and I also like that they're really like, and this is something that Disney's really good at. They make lasting impressions with their side characters, or like characters who don't play like a major role. Like I like Lucille Sung as Dong Hu, the new the leader of the clan of like when they go to Talon.
Yeah.
Like at first I and this actually happened because I saw a few articles saying it's like, no, that was not Betty White. But it's like she's like innocent, like, and not at all off-putting, but then still intimidating when Sisu almost gets killed. And I love like the cockiness that Sung Kang brings to Dang Hai, and then also like I also like Chai the flower guy. It does his low key bro mannerisms by John Park. And I just think that's such an important detail to catch. Like you want to make sure everyone is memorable. You don't want to be like, oh, the main characters are great, but the side characters, whatever, they're hit and miss. Or the side characters are way more interesting than your main characters, a la the Sleeping Beauty problem. But that's how I feel about the voice cast.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think this movie more so than some of the others it has probably one of the strongest ensemble casts, whereas you know, say the Wreck-It Ralph movies, you know, not all the characters are as memorable if they're not like a video game cameo.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean that's a problem because sometimes some of the folk like animation is not made in like a vacuum. It's a huge like cooperative effort, and sometimes some things fall flat, and sometimes it's a well-oiled machine. So, but you know, Max, any thoughts about the voice cast?
Yeah, I mean, I think Mike said it. Disney in this film and many cast actors, not just celebrities. So I think everyone does a great job. We mentioned Daniel Day Kim, who is great, and Isaac Wang is Boone, and everyone does such a nice job. Sandra Oh was mentioned. I thought she did a great job. Everyone, and then of course Alan Tudyk making those weird noises. You even have Sung Kang in there as Dang Hai, who I love. So yeah, everyone does a great job. And to the point of the like smaller characters, like I really felt like Kumandra felt like an authentic lived-in fantasy world. Every new place they went to had rich characters, even in small little parts who you met for a minute or two. Just felt really well thought out.
Yeah, so I know like we're using science for a lot of dumb stuff, but can we use science to make real life tuk-tuks? Like I want to ride around on a tuk-tuk.
Same.
Yeah.
I hope there's like a future like Disney World or Disneyland attraction where you get to ride on like a mechanical tuk-tuk.
And
gosh.
yeah. It would be, I wonder if it'd be like a bumper cars thing or like a go-karts thing, because that could be, or like a VR tuk-tuk racing game or something.
I kind of picture it like the Tow Mater spin at Cars Land sort of thing, where it's like the teacups where you're just sort of rolling on this thing in a circle.
Oh, I could see that. And
But talking about rides, when they were on the boat traveling through the water and you could see like the drone on the outside, I was like, man, if Disney ever gets tired of Avatar, they could totally change the Navi River journey to Raya and the Last Dragon boat ride.
I could see that. I mean, like this one has kind of like all the like like points of like, if Disney's smart with this, they could like really build off of this film. Like I would actually kind of like to see an animated series, maybe if they could get like Studio Mir.
I was gonna say the exact same thing, because two prominent examples of Disney revival continuations are Tangled the series and Big Hero 6 the series, which actually is getting like that's getting two shows. One, the 2D animated series, which just wrapped its third season, and then on Disney Plus, Baymax is getting a spin-off. So if Disney wants to collaborate with Studio Mir for like a either Disney Channel or Disney Plus like action adventure series set in the world of Kumandra, I'd be all for that.
Yeah. No, I mean that's really all I have to say about that. But any like minor nitpicks or criticisms, or like any criticisms you want to discuss, or are y'all just pretty okay to wrap things up?
I think my my devil's advocate about, you know, how, you know, the movie can be a little bit distracting with its humor and, you know, sort of the familiar story beats. That's all been ironed out throughout our discussion.
Yeah, I agree. It's like I can't really think of something that I would say the film absolutely just botched, because I feel like you could say that, but then there's also a counter argument to back that up. So, Max, anything on your side of things?
No, there's nothing that stood out to me as needing to be criticized. Yeah, I mean, to the point of familiar story beats, sure, it uses a lot of tropes of, fantasy storytelling. I mean, I feel like I've read a ton of young adult fantasy novels that have a very similar progression, but It didn't bother me, and I still think they created a really unique world, and Raya is such a thrilling, empowering character that it didn't really distract or affect me at all.
Yeah, no, I'm like, and Mike knows about this. I say this all the time. I want Disney to be the best that Disney can be. I don't want to see Disney try to be like DreamWorks or Illumination. I want Disney to be the best at being Disney. And I was pretty much fine with a lot of the story beats, like familiar and such, because they still took an interesting twist or a perspective to them. So I was not really bothered by a lot of it. So, like I said, I think the only thing I really do think was not cool was them not putting the short on Disney Plus the same day or bundling it, because it's like, because it's like watching a Pixar movie. You want to see the short first and then see the movie.
Yeah, they put Burrow on Disney Plus, so
yeah, so it's interesting. Well, I mean, and that could be its own philosophical moral argument right there. But anyway, so I guess from the long time that we've talked about this, I assume we all hated it. No, no, of course I'm kidding. For right now, this might be my favorite animated film of the year, but it's kind of tied with Calamity, and I'm going through the New York Children's International Film Festival right now, and the Bears' famous invasion of Sicily is kind of edging up on there. So I don't know. I think it's the best animated film of the year from the U.S. so far, at least.
Yeah. To put films on a more equal playing field, I'd say Raya and the Last Dragon is the best film that the majority of people can see. But personally, I have Calamity just above it. But both these films I think are excellent, and when both are equally available, I think you should check both of them out. Max, what about you?
yeah, I mean, I have not and don't always traverse into the depths of animation that you guys do. I have not seen Calamity Jane, although it's on my list. But you mentioned earlier at the very top that you're not prepared yet to like rank this in the Disney revival era. For me, it would be in the top 2 or 3.
Nice.
That's how much I connected to it and loved it. So yeah,
I would say it's in my top 5 of the Disney revival. I'd have to think about that. We'll have to talk about this at another time, Mike.
Sure, but like we end all of our episodes, this is our recommendation segment where we can recommend anything, whether it's a movie, TV show, or even a YouTube video if it's relevant. For me, since we're in the month of March, and speaking of the Disney revival, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that this month is the 5th anniversary of Zootopia, which is another example of Disney kind of like breaking a little bit from their usual formula to tell a very rich allegorical story about society, racism, all of those mature themes, but set in a anthropomorphic animal world. And that's another revival film that's getting an animated continuation on Disney Plus.
Yeah, no, that movie's great. It was probably like my favorite Disney animated film of the revival era, though it's also tied with Tangled for me. My recommendation is going to be 2 things. One, if you can find this film, it's easily rentable on demand, and I think on different rental sites. Watch Boy in the World. It's this gorgeous 2D animated film from Brazil, and it was nominated the same year as When Marnie Was There for Best Animated Feature at the Oscars. Though all those films lost to what was it, Inside Out. But that was a strong year too, with like Anomalisa and what have you. Though my main recommendation, because I've talked about character animation, a lot during this episode. There's this video from a YouTube channel called New Frame Plus, and it's called The Animation of Sonic Games, and it goes through the mainline franchise of the games, and it talks about really just like the pros and cons of each game, and it also kind of points out that Sonic and the characters in that franchise are kind of a pain in the butt to animate, and they're not well designed in that regards. I'm not trying to piss off the fan base or anything, but it's an interesting argument to be made when you watch this video. So I'd highly recommend the animation of Sonic games from New Frame Plus.
Awesome. Max, do you have any recommendations?
Yeah, so my friend Andres Galago, who was a Schmodown competitor, made a motion comic featuring Superman and the Joker called The Sound of One Hand Clapping. It's available on his YouTube channel. My friend Dan Nye voices Superman, which is really cool to say I know Superman now. I thought he did a really nice job. It's not like fully animated. Like I said, it's a motion comic, but I think it fits. And it has not gotten enough views and love. So his YouTube channel is GALLE Ghost, Galaghost. So if you have 12 minutes, go over there, check it out. I think it's really well done.
Awesome. Yes, everyone, please check out The Sound of One Hand Clapping. So yeah, that'll do it for this episode. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, very overall positive episode, and we don't normally get that because sometimes when I'm building up what we're going to talk about, there's always that one stinking point, and I'm trying to make sure we don't have an overly negative episode. If we have something negative, we have to have something positive or something more interesting to talk about. So
yeah, it's good to have a balance of both the positive and the negative.
Right.
So before we head out of here, first of all, Maxwell, thanks for joining us on this episode. Where can everyone find you online?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. And like you said, I much prefer talking about things I like than things I don't like. So I'm glad this was a uniformly positive episode that made it a lot of fun. You can find me on Twitter and Letterboxd at Cinemaxwell. Instagram is at Cinemaxwell Inc. And I am very frequently over on the PJ Campbell Network on YouTube, where we do all sorts of fun stuff like movie watch-alongs, the Sunday evening unwind. We've been doing weekly reviews of WandaVision, and we'll be doing that for Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And on that network, what I'm most proud of is I host a bi-weekly show called Front Center Mezzanine. It's a theater-based podcast where we interview actors, writers, producers, etc., who work in Broadway and off-Broadway and talk about their life and their career. And especially with Broadway shut down now for just about a year, it's been really nice to give them a platform to discuss their life and still selfishly stay connected to the world of the theater when I am so desperately missing it.
Awesome. Cam, where can everyone find you?
You can find me on Twitter at twitter.com/CamsEyeView or at CamsEyeView. I also have my own website called camseyeview.biz, where I review animated films from around the world, big and small, called The Other Side of Animation. I'm the co-host of this podcast. You can find me on renegadepopculture.com, and you can find me in the Renegade Pop Culture Facebook group, where I'll post things from time to time there. I also have a Patreon at patreon.com/CamsEyeView, and you can find me there.
And you guys can find me on Twitter at CaptainK42. Check out all my quick thought reviews on letterboxd.com/CoachK42. And you can find me in all the various Facebook groups just at my name. You can check out Renegade Pop Culture on Facebook and Twitter at Ren Pop Culture. Find all our previous podcasts on Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen. And last but not least, check out renegadepopculture.com. Need an escape? So do we. That'll do it for this installment of Renegade Animation. We will catch you guys later. Peace out.
Bye.